There is one land that has shaped the history of Europe for more than 1,000 years. A land where rivers carried the wealth of nations, where some of the world's richest soil fed entire empires, and where powerful kingdoms rose and fell in an endless struggle for control. Today, we know it as Ukraine. But long before the modern world existed, this land had already become one of history's greatest prizes. The question is, why? Long before kings fought over its cities or armies marched across its plains, Ukraine possessed something no empire could ignore: its geography. At the heart of Eastern Europe, Ukraine sits where forests give way to open steppe, where great rivers flow south toward the Black Sea, and where Europe meets the vast lands of Asia. For merchants, it offered trade; for farmers, unmatched fertility; for generals, a gateway between continents. No feature was more important than the mighty Dnieper River. Flowing from the forests of the north to the Black Sea, it became one of medieval Europe's greatest trade highways, carrying furs, honey, wax, silver, and countless travelers between distant civilizations. Beneath these rivers lay another extraordinary gift. Ukraine's famous black earth, known as Chernozem, is among the richest agricultural soil on Earth. For thousands of years, its fertile plains produced harvests capable of feeding kingdoms, sustaining armies, and enriching whoever controlled them. Geography, trade, food, and access to the sea all converged here. That combination made Ukraine one of the most valuable lands in Europe, and over the centuries, empire after empire would come seeking the very same prize. The first were not mighty emperors. They were Viking traders sailing south from Scandinavia. The first people to recognize the extraordinary value of this land were not emperors or conquering armies. They were Viking traders from Scandinavia. Beginning in the 9th century, these Norse explorers sailed south through Eastern Europe's vast river network in search of something more valuable than conquest: trade. Using the Dnieper River as their highway, they connected the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea, opening one of medieval Europe's most important commercial routes. Along the way, they exchanged furs, honey, wax, amber, and slaves for silver, silk, wine, spices, and luxury goods arriving from Byzantium and the Islamic world. At the center of this growing network stood a settlement that would soon become one of Eastern Europe's greatest cities: Kiev. Perfectly positioned on the Dnieper River, it became the beating heart of a new state known as Kievan Rus. From here, princes ruled over expanding territories, while merchants from distant lands filled its markets with goods from across Europe and Asia. For centuries, prosperity flowed along these rivers, transforming the region into one of the richest and most influential powers in Eastern Europe. But wealth has always attracted envy, and far beyond the eastern horizon, a new empire, unlike any the world had ever seen, was already gathering. For nearly 3 centuries, Kievan Rus had flourished. Its rivers carried merchants, its cities grew wealthy. Its princes ruled over one of Eastern Europe's greatest civilizations. But beyond the eastern horizon, a storm unlike anything the world had ever seen was already forming. In the early 13th century, the Mongol Empire erupted from the vast grasslands of Central Asia. United by Genghis Khan, the Mongols transformed from scattered nomadic tribes into the largest land empire in human history. With unmatched speed, discipline, and mobility, they crushed kingdom after kingdom, sweeping across China, Central Asia, and Persia. After Genghis Khan's death, the conquest did not stop. His grandson, Batu Khan, was given a new mission: ride west. By 1237, Mongol armies poured into the lands of the Rus. One city after another disappeared beneath clouds of smoke. Ryazan fell. Then Vladimir. Then countless towns and villages followed. Those who survived carried terrifying stories westward. An enemy that moved faster than any army. An enemy that never seemed to tire. An enemy that left entire cities in ruins. Then, in the winter of 1240, the Mongols arrived outside Kiev. For weeks, the defenders resisted behind the city's walls. Massive siege engines hurled stones against its defenses day and night. The thunder of impacts echoed across the city as buildings collapsed and fires spread through the streets. Finally, the walls gave way. Mongol warriors poured into Kiev. What followed marked the end of an era. Much of the once great city was destroyed. Its markets fell silent. Its churches were left in ruins. The political heart of Kievan Rus had been broken. For generations afterward, the region would never fully recover its former power. Yet, the land itself remained. Its rivers still flowed. Its fertile soil still fed those who lived upon it. And because of that, new kingdoms would soon arrive to claim the very same prize. The fall of Kiev did not erase the importance of the land. It simply created a vacuum. Over the next century, new powers competed to control the former lands of Kievan Rus. To the north, the Grand Duchy of Lithuania expanded southward, bringing much of present-day Ukraine under its influence. To the west, the Kingdom of Poland also looked east, drawn by fertile farmland, prosperous trade routes, and strategic frontiers. Rather than destroying the region, these kingdoms rebuilt many of its towns and encouraged commerce to return. Yet, Ukraine was never fully at peace. It had become a frontier, a meeting place between civilizations. To the south stretched the Black Sea. Beyond it stood the rising Ottoman Empire. Across the open steppe, mounted raiders from the Crimean Khanate launched frequent attacks into the borderlands, carrying away people, livestock, and wealth. Ukraine once again found itself standing between powerful worlds. And from this dangerous frontier, a new people would rise: the Cossacks. For centuries, the Black Sea remained one of the greatest prizes in Eastern Europe. Whoever controlled its shores controlled trade between Europe, Asia, and the Mediterranean. As the Golden Horde weakened during the 15th century, a new power emerged on the Crimean Peninsula: the Crimean Khanate. Before long, it became closely tied to the expanding Ottoman Empire, whose navy dominated much of the Black Sea. Together, they transformed the southern frontier into one of Europe's most dangerous borderlands. Almost every year, swift cavalry raids swept across the open steppe. Entire villages vanished overnight. Thousands of captives were taken south and sold into slavery through the markets of Crimea and the Ottoman world. For the people living along these frontier lands, survival demanded something more than walls. It demanded warriors who could fight as quickly as the enemy itself. Those warriors were the Cossacks. They were not a kingdom. They were not an empire. They were free frontier communities who chose a life beyond the reach of kings. Along the lower Dnieper River, they built fortified camps known as the Zaporizhian Sich. There, every man was expected to fight. Every man had a voice, and together they forged one of history's most formidable warrior societies. Soon, the Cossacks became the shield of the frontier. They fought back against Crimean Tatar raiders. They launched daring expeditions across the Black Sea against the Ottoman Empire. Their courage and skill earned them a legendary reputation throughout Eastern Europe. But their greatest struggle was yet to come. A conflict that would forever bind the fate of Ukraine with the rising power of Russia. While the Cossacks guarded the frontier, a new power was rising in the northeast: Muscovy. Over generations, the princes of Moscow united neighboring Russian lands, growing stronger with each passing century. In 1547, Ivan IV, better known as Ivan the Terrible, became the first ruler to crown himself Tsar of Russia. His expanding state steadily pushed outward, seeking new lands, greater security, and influence across Eastern Europe. Meanwhile, much of Ukraine had come under the rule of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Although many Cossacks served the Commonwealth as frontier soldiers, tensions continued to grow. As Polish control tightened and religious and political conflicts deepened, unrest spread across the frontier. In 1648, the Cossack leader Bohdan Khmelnytsky launched a massive uprising against Polish rule. The rebellion shook Eastern Europe, but victory alone could not guarantee survival. Surrounded by powerful rivals, Khmelnytsky searched for a strong ally. In 1654, he accepted the protection of Tsar Alexis of Russia through the Pereyaslav Agreement. At the time, it appeared to offer the Cossacks security against their enemies. Instead, it marked the beginning of a relationship that would shape the history of Ukraine for centuries. The alliance with Russia changed the balance of power. Over the centuries that followed, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth declined, the Ottoman frontier retreated, and the Russian Empire steadily expanded across Eastern Europe. The Cossack hetmanate gradually lost its independence. In 1775, Catherine the Great ordered the destruction of the Zaporizhian Sich. The fortress that had stood as the heart of Cossack freedom was gone. But the struggle for Ukraine did not end. It simply entered a new age. Because the land itself had never changed. Its rich, black soil could feed nations. Its rivers carried trade across a continent. Its open plains offered both opportunity and invasion. It stood between Europe and Asia, between forests and steppe, between East and West. For centuries, every empire saw something different in Ukraine. Some sought its fertile land, others sought security for their borders, and some sought the power that came with controlling one of Europe's greatest crossroads. Kings, khans, and tsars all came to claim it. Empires rose and fell, borders shifted, rulers came and went. Yet the land endured. From the first cities of Kievan Rus to the thunder of Mongol horsemen, to the banners of Lithuania and Poland, to the Cossacks, and to the expanding Russian Empire, one truth remained unchanged. Ukraine was never simply a land between nations. It was the crossroads where civilizations met, where ambitions collided, and where the history of Europe was shaped. That is how Ukraine became the battleground of empires.